So SummerSlam concluded on Sunday night with night two, and suffice to say it didn't disappoint, but it did end in controversy. But I will get to that shortly. So to go through this match and step by step. We started off with the triple threat match between Rhea Ripley, Io Sky and Naomi for the women's championship. This was the match that I predicted correctly that was going to be the opener, just because it made sense. I mean, honestly, I was really up for this night. I thought the match card was absolutely fire, and I thought any one of these matches could have potentially opened the night. I think the triple threat was kind of a perfect opener. Obviously, it proved the perfect opener for night two of WrestleMania, when they had two of these three wrestlers opening with Bianca Belair. And that just ended up being obviously one of the greatest women's matches we've seen. It just kind of like made sense to kind of like, run that back. And it did. Again, these women delivered everything you'd expect them to. There was just great in-ring performances. So we know that Io Sky and Rhea Ripley have just magic chemistry in the ring. And it ended up picking Naomi to retain, and Rhea Ripley eating the pin, which is also what I predicted as well, because it makes sense for Naomi to retain going forward with Stephanie Valkyrie in Paris. She's just the most obvious pick, being the biggest heel against obviously this rising babyface, I mean, we had Io Sky eating the pin from Naomi and losing the championship against Naomi at Night of Champions. So it just kind of like made sense, that you couldn't really have Io eating the pin again. So it made all the sense in the world. But I did kind of, especially how over Rhea Ripley is with the crowd, and I think that really showed when they came out, by the way, with the entrances. I think that was just electric, but I think it did really amplify just how over Rhea Ripley is with the crowd. So on that note, I thought maybe there was going to be shenanigans here. Maybe, we could see like a return of Bianca Belair, perhaps, or something, just to kind of give Rhea Ripley that protection. And we didn't really have that. And surprisingly, we had also Naomi picking up a win by pinning Rhea Ripley with a surprise roll-up, which I gotta say I'm not a big fan of. There are some people who think it's perfect, and we'll just kind of like have to see how it goes on. It does give Rhea Ripley the reason to kind of have this beef with Naomi, and but I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily needed at that time, because you've obviously got this feud already set up with Naomi and Stephanie Valkyrie. You've also got like Rhea Ripley, Io Sky kind of in that fray as well. So I just don't necessarily think you need to give Rhea Ripley a reason to be peed at Naomi. I just kind of didn't feel, and I did feel like it did Rhea dirty a bit, do you know what I mean? I just kind of wasn't really a big fan of it. But again, it did was a solid opener. So we then were moved on to the 6-man tag team match. And this was the most anticipated match on the entire card, because my God, I just thought this was going to melt my brain, and this was just every bit as chaotic as I expected it to be. It was kind of it was kind of structured where it was everybody's turn to just kind of go through a table, and you just had so many crazy spots here. I'm not going to start listing because I know I'll forget some. But yeah, you just had so many crazy spots here where it was like everyone's turn to kind of take us fall off a ladder through the table. Spanish fly through the table was just absolutely crazy, and it was just. It was just chaos, but I absolutely loved it, and I think it absolutely delivered. And then we had resulted in the Wyatt Six picking up a win again, which was also another prediction that I had got right. Is a 2 for 2 with that. And I just kind of felt but any one of these could have really won it. It would have, I think you could have made an argument for any of them. But yeah, the Wyatt Six obviously retained, and I'm cool with that. So there wasn't any let up, because we had. Then this followed up by the Intercontinental match between Becky Lynch defending against Lyra Valkyria. This was another street fight. So we basically had tables again. So it was, and it just felt maybe. I don't think that I didn't enjoy the spots in this. But I just felt maybe it could have had a different place on the card if you were going to position the 6-man tag in TLC as a second match. I think maybe you could have put maybe Dom Mysterio and AJ Styles or something, just to kind of have a sort of breather where, before going into this, because it did kind of feel more back to where we had just been, had just a whole load of spots with tables in the DLC match, and now we got more spots. There was more crazy stuff with Valkyria spent a significant amount much with being handcuffed with the zip ties, and there was a spot where I think they had there was a botch where they had done a belly-to-belly suplex, I think it was, and the ties really came off, and this was so not planned, because you saw Lyra Valkyria trying to pull her hands back, but the ties back onto her, and you gotta give her credit. It happens, whatever. It happens, but you gotta give kind of credit for the calmness and composure that they maintained in that moment. And then you had Lyra Valkyria disappearing under the ring for a significant amount of time to emerge, going ta-da, they're off. I just I thought it was, but I don't know, there was something that did feel a bit off with this. We know Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch have great chemistry. I don't know, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I can only really theorize that it was just kind of maybe the positioning and maybe on the card. It ended again, another prediction that I got right with Becky Lynch retaining, because I just kind of think that makes sense, but she ended up picking up a win after Bailey intervened, and there was a moment where it it toyed with a Bailey heel turn where Becky Lynch was trying to coerce Bailey into hitting Laura Valkyria with a crowbar, and it didn't really like make sense in kind of like reality, in the sense that Bailey had a lot more reason to have beef with Becky Lynch and Laura Valkyria. But I know that quite a few fans were hypothesizing maybe Bailey turning up and turning heel. I thought there was a potential as well. So I felt like I could totally understand why they would sort of lean into that. So yeah, I was down for that. I think there's gotta be something going forward with Becky Lynch and Laura Valkyria, because it ended with Bailey going to hit Becky Lynch with a chain wrapped around her fist, missing, hitting Laura Valkyria instead, and Becky Lynch picking up the pinfall. But in the time that it had, like Bailey could have easily intervened this pin, do you know what I mean? So I think you've got to kind of do something with Laura Valkyria and Bailey maybe before kind of circling it back. So yeah, like I said, another really match that overall I enjoyed. But yeah, I think maybe just maybe with kind of how we were already starting to feel maybe a bit gassed, because we had 3 very chaotic matches to start with, and we moved on to then Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu in the steel cage match. And honestly, this was the one where I felt, this was the first match where I kind of felt was a bit disappointed by. I thought it was a bit of a dud, to be honest with you. I thought there were some really great spots in here, and you know, it ended with Solo Sikoa calling out to do out of the cage to retain. This was the first prediction I got wrong, but I feel like, yeah, after the match, because we had all the interventions from Talatonga and all that, and we had this spot after the match where Jacob Fatu had done this moonsault off the top of the steel cage, which I just thought was a crazy spot. I thought it was absolutely the highlight, but I felt it was so odd that they kind of did that big spot after the match. It felt like it was something that maybe, you know, kind of needed. It was needed kind of like in the match, because during the match we had Jacob Fatu go to the top of the cage again, only to get handcuffed by Talatonga at the top of the match, and at the top of the cage, and then we had which we had just seen in the previous match, kind of with Laura Valkyria getting their hands tied together by with a zip tie. So we just felt some stuff, you know, felt like a little bit repetitive of them, but you know, I'm being quite nitpicky there. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't something that really kind of but yeah, for the reason, like, it was this was quite a quick match as well, and it just, yeah, I mean, which kind of made sense in the way that we had just had 3 very chaotic matches. So, you know, but it just felt like, yeah, I don't know. There was just something about this match. It just felt a bit of a lull, to be honest with you. Yeah, so we had Solo retaining. We had we then moved on to the match between Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles. And this was another short match, but I did enjoy this match. It was everything that I felt it kind of needed to be. It didn't really need to be anything else. You had quite a lot of a goofiness in here, with the Eddie Guerrero kind of tributes, with Dominic Mysterio bringing a chair in behind the referee's back and then throwing it to AJ Styles, and then playing dead to make it look like AJ AJ Styles had just hit him with a chair, and then AJ Styles just reacting by wrapping the chair around his neck, and then both just kind of acting dead when the referee turned around, and then we had this basic kind of like football spot where as soon as we found that were made apparent that the referee wasn't buying it, they just got straight back up and just carried on as if nothing had happened. And and I'm all down for that goofy stuff, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it just kind of, I enjoyed this match for what it was, do you know what I mean? And then we moved on to the main event between John Cena and Cody Rhodes. And this was another really, really heavy match, which we knew it was going to be. Do you know what I mean? We had John Cena remain babyface throughout, which I kind of like expected there. I think because there had been so much speculation, and it wasn't even from the fandom, it was kind of from like people and commentators and stuff in WWE who were kind of like hypothesizing if this babyface turn from John Cena was genuine. So I thought maybe they could have teased and leaned into that a little bit more, maybe. But on the whole, it didn't have to. I mean, it was everything that it needed to be. We had these spots where Cody Rhodes, it didn't really tease his heel turn for me. I didn't feel like, I was never really convinced of that, but there was some great acting, great storytelling in this with where it basically showed that Cody Rhodes was in this position where he just had to do what was necessary to pick up a win, but he was doing it kind of like, not because he was turning heel, but he was doing it kind of like reluctantly, and and all of this kind of stuff. It just kind of like just a really solid match. I felt like maybe it went on a bit too long. I felt maybe you could do, this went on for about the best part of 40 minutes. So I think maybe you could have just shaved about 5 minutes off this and maybe put it on the end of another match, like maybe the Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu match. But yeah, I just thought that this was another really solid match, really strong storytelling in it, that it was just ended up being, this passing of a torch match, which is kind of what it needed to be. It didn't need to be anything else. It didn't need to be like loads of shenanigans and all of this kind of stuff. It could, just having this being a really kind of like emotionally draining but passing of a torch moment. It just made all the sense in the world. It was kind of like everything it needed to be. And then just when we kind of thought that was it, I think maybe you could just maybe say like that this was in conclusion a really strong night, and the match ended up just being everything that it kind of felt it needed to be, at least from my perspective. It didn't have what the actual moment, do you know what I mean? It didn't have that big wow moment where it had done something really, really that people weren't expecting. And so just as John Cena was about to exit the ring, we got that moment because Brock Lesnar's music hit and the WWE Universe lost its mind. And so this has kind of like obviously caused some controversy because Brock Lesnar's name was embroiled in the Vince McMahon case. So this has kind of caused quite a bit of controversy where people are concerned about that. And that his name has been embroiled in this scandal, and he's been away for 2 years because of this, because of his name being involved in this. So he's been off telly for 2 years because of this from WWE. And you had this other thing where Brock Lesnar is Brock Lesnar. He's a big entity in WWE and a big part of John Cena's past. It's almost like this they're telling with all the ghosts of John Cena kind of coming back. So I. And I understand it from both sides. I understand from a fandom point of view whether, maybe really excited to see this. And I totally understand, obviously, the concern that people have. And I feel like it kind of felt a bit... And they had taken the decision to cancel also the press conferences after this as well, and which didn't kind of really help, because that just didn't really appear really a good look. I think this kind of allowed everyone to kind of go on and run with these narratives as well, that WWE were trying to kind of avoid being questioned about this, and trying to and I just feel like it's natural to kind of have questions. Do you know what I mean? I'm not kind of affirming obviously anything about Brock Lesnar or the case or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But I just feel like it's important remembering that obviously Brock Lesnar was never a defendant in this case, and if we've had this situation where his name has now just been cleared, so this is kind of why he's returned, and this is why WWE have got behind his return. I think they kind of need to just kind of do a real official announcement to just make that known, and not kind of shy away from it, because I just feel like by kind of doing that, you're just creating this void where people can just run with their narratives and speculations that may be completely false, and you know what I mean, and it just, that doesn't really kind of really look good when you're talking about obviously the PR of WWE, but also the reputation of everybody involved. You know what I mean? So it just felt, it didn't quite sit right with me. And I mean, we've only, we are all kind of outsiders, right? No, none of us know what the ins and outs of this are. So none of us should kind of try and act like we do know. We are all just outsiders, and we don't know. And I think that it's just kind of I do kind of feel like that's where WWE just need to kind of fill in those holes. Do you know what I mean? And then, I mean, sure, I don't think it's going to, if they did that, I don't think it's going to smooth everybody over. I think some people are just not going to like this decision regardless. But at least, they've got a firm narrative, they've got an explanation. They've got an explanation as to why Brock Lesnar has been away for 2 years because of this case, and now that's no longer active, and he's fine to return. I think there needs to be some explanation now. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. So and then it kind of there were reports that Triple H has since said that it was that he returned because it was John Cena's decision for Brock Lesnar to come back, because John Cena wanted it. So this is kind of embroiled John Cena into this as well, and this is his farewell tour. So it's all just a bit messy, and it doesn't kind of I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm not affirming anything about anything, but just my gut reaction, it doesn't quite sit right with me. So I don't think it was kind of necessarily handled in the best way. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see how it goes. So, but yeah, it's kind of like moving on and wrapping this up. In general, I thought this was a really solid night. I thought, like I said, the match card was absolutely banging. I felt like, this was, there were maybe a few spots here that was a bit repetitive, and there was, and I felt like, Jacob for two and so this match could have been better. But on the whole, this was just a really solid night. And like I said, I think if you watch my night one review of my predictions video, which you can also see on this channel, I was surprised by night one as well. So I thought overall SummerSlam was a really strong event that WWE had put on. So yeah, I just kind of like so overall a really solid PLE. I mean, I'm not too sure that I feel like so this was the first two-night SummerSlam that we got, and this feels like it's just going to be a trend going on, and I feel like there's going to be plans from TKO to make more WWE PLEs, a two-night event, the Royal Rumble being one, which is kind of like a bit of a no-brainer, and that you have, how time-consuming the Royal Rumble matches are, and you both have a male Royal Rumble and a women's Royal Rumble now, so that kind of like makes sense. I was always kind of like the usual suspect for the next one. We got maybe speculation that there's going to be a two-night Survivor Series, which I don't think is really necessary. And I mean, on the whole, how I feel about this kind of like two-night format, I don't know. I feel ambivalent about it. I really do, because on one side, I really embrace it in the sense that you kind of like allowing to preserve everything, and you're not kind of getting all over in one night, and you can preserve all this, like the enjoyment of it, I guess. I mean, for creators like us, it's great as well. Do you know what I mean? Because it kind of like helps us to create more content as well, and do you know what I mean? It sort of does the work there for us. But from a practical point of view, I don't know how I feel. Like, if it does feel like maybe a bit much, and it does feel a bit rushed, because you have these situations where, for example, with night one ending with Seth Rollins' return and the cash in, and how big that was, but then we kind of like had to move on from that within 24 hours, because we had this next night, and now everyone was talking about Seth Rollins, and now everyone's talking about Brock Lesnar, and now we're kind of like everyone's talking about Monday Night. Do you know what I mean? It moves at such a pace, and there's not really enough time for anything to really breathe, and I do kind of like feel like this is one of the kind of hindrances. You know what I mean? I get why WWE do it. I know, it's business, but yeah, just from a kind of a creative standpoint and from a practical standpoint, I'm just, I do kind of like wish they would just kind of like give some of this stuff to breathe sometimes, and not just kind of like cram everything in, because then you've got this two-night PLEs, and it's crammed in between an episode of SmackDown and an episode of Raw as well. So that's just kind of like, it all just feels a bit cramped, and nothing's really getting to really any time to breathe. So in that sense, I'm not really a big fan of it, but yeah, like I said, guys, overall, I think this was a really big hit for WWE. I thought it was a really strong night, rounding off a really strong PLE in general for WWE, and we'll see how it goes. And so thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more, don't forget to ring a bell for notifications. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until the next video, I'll see you guys on the other side.